The video you're about to watch was originally going to be a pretty basic tutorial, but thanks to the ceaseless humor of the universe, it is now a tragic, harrowing warning to anybody doubting the importance of project backups. Chapter markers are below for easy navigation. Let's begin. Media management, project backups, archiving. These are some of the least interesting parts of filmmaking. And if you're not a filmmaker, perhaps you have not even considered the importance of backing up your digital media. It's time consuming, it's expensive, it's boring. But let me tell you, as someone who's the vault manager at an edit house for a year, it might be the most important thing you can do for your projects, for your photos, for your documents, everything. Hell of a reflection. I'd like to start out by saying that for about 99% of you, in my opinion, I think a NAS is overkill. You don't need one. A NAS is a network attached storage. It looks kind of like this. It's made by these popular brands. I was doing a lot of research for this video to see what would be the best for me. And a lot of the big YouTubers say, you gotta get a NAS, it's the best thing you can get. And then they would go on to say that their NAS was provided by the manufacturer for free. It's kind of like getting a Rolls Royce for free and then making a video that says, this Rolls Royce is so great, handcrafted, beautiful. It's like, yes, we know the Rolls Royce is going to be great, but you have bypassed the hurdle that keeps most people from getting a Rolls Royce. You know what I mean? Like, you got it for free. The cost is what keeps people from getting it anyway. You also have to maintain the server yourself, which introduces some potential security risks. And then there's another really large liability that these videos don't ever seem to talk about. And I'll talk about that in just a second. The storage method that's best for you will come down to how much media you need to store and how much money you want to spend. You can always spend more money to get better setups. I'll walk you through what I've landed on after doing a lot of research, and I'll tell you the pros and the cons. You can follow along, I guess, or you can just do whatever you want. Regardless of what method you choose, there's one main universal truth that applies across the board in terms of archiving, and it's critical that you follow this one golden rule. The golden rule is redundancy. You have to have 2 copies of everything. Even if that just means you have 1 copy on your computer and 1 copy on an external hard drive, that covers you. That way, if one of the drives fails, and with drives, it's not if it will fail, but when it will fail, you don't lose everything. You want to have a second copy of everything. And in a perfect world, you would have those 2 copies be in physically different places. Be it 1 copy at your parents' house, 1 copy at work, 1 copy in the cloud. That way, if your house burns down, which sounds crazy, but look at the Palisades, some of my peers lost all of their stuff. Having 2 copies doesn't do you any good if something happens to the place destroying both copies. And this is the one thing about a NAS setup that I don't think people talk about enough. It's that the NAS, while it's a RAID setup, it protects you from a drive failing. It doesn't protect you from something happening to the system. It's just one thing. So if your house burns down, you lose everything still because it's not redundant to another location. So you spend the $5,000 on this setup, and then you still need to spend more money to get another drive or to put it all up in the cloud. It's very expensive, and you still need to do the other thing. So unless you're logging into the drive remotely, which I know I'm surely not, I don't think it's worth the money for most people. Anyway, have them in 2 locations, have everything doubled. In film production, when you're a PA and they have 2 copies of what they shot that day, they don't even put both copies in the same car. In case you get in a car crash, they don't want to lose both, so they split them. I feel like that's sort of the mentality you have to have with your own backups. You gotta plan for the worst case scenario in hopes that it never happens. What I've chosen for my backup system is 2 10 terabyte Seagate spinning disk hard drives. They were pretty affordable. They have a lot of space, and I will put 1 at my job and I'll leave 1 here at my house. I've opted to not use the cloud because I don't really like the idea of another company having control over my media and then having the ability to change the terms of the contract and just pay them in perpetuity. So for the sake of physical media ownership, I've opted to take the more annoying route. Buy once, cry once type situation. I also got 2 Apache cases from Harbor Freight. They were $13 each, just for a little extra protection. Here's a little bit of a fun fact about these little holes in North American plugs. They are legacy. They are not needed anymore. They just have survived because nobody wants to remove them. Basically, old North American outlets had little grabbers that would grab these holes to keep the plug in, but now it's just friction. So first thing I did was organize all of my projects chronologically and assign them job numbers on the one archive drive that I have. One of the reasons for me making this video is because my own personal archiving system has been fucked. Like, it is so bad. Everything is on one hard drive, one lacy hard drive, which are like notorious for failing. So I need to follow my own guidance and duplicate my backups. Hello. My room is messy. This is not normally how I would be recording this. I haven't even showered yet, but the drive started to fail and it wasn't being read by the computer or by carbon copy, and it's finally going. So I'm just quickly putting this all together to record because this is not the way I wanted this video to go, but it looks like it's going, and I think there's a chance that I won't lose literally everything I've done for the last 15 years. Oh my God. If it wasn't like such a dire situation, it would be kind of funny. Like, if this all works out and everything is okay at the end, this will be a great story. But if this, well, I spent so long organizing. The irony of losing the hard drive that I'm archiving is not lost on me. I guess the whole point of this was to avoid literally this exact situation from happening, but I picked up the camera, and at the time it took me to set up the camera, it stopped working. I've abandoned Carbon Copier, and now I'm just using the Finder to duplicate it, and that seems to be working. It says it's gonna take about 8 hours to duplicate, which is pretty reasonable, actually. So the important thing is that it's actually, doing something, which is good. This is so much fun. I'm having so much fun, can't you tell? I guess, if anything, this is a really good testimonial for why you should back up everything 2 times. So that when one of your drives fails, you don't have to do this. So what I'm doing now is I'm just moving them one at a time. Like, one, opening this folder and copying the guts. That way, if this fails, I can just skip to the next one and see if that one will work without having to start the whole folder over. So the conclusion I've sort of come to about the status of the drive is basically everything that was added to the drive after a certain point has lost write access, which means it still has read access. The computer can still play the files, but it can't copy the files, it can't duplicate the files, which is annoying, especially because it goes back to 2023. So right now I've lost 2023 and 2024. Fortunately, some footage of 2023 is on other drives. Climbing stuff is on a different drive. Some of the stuff that's corrupt is on another corrupt drive. That stuff I can get, and then all of the most recent stuff, 2025, is on a different drive. So that stuff can still be saved. Put this shit in the freezer, hopefully. Let's see if this fucking works. I think 2023 I was trying to save space, so I was only saving thumbnails and masters anyway, and so I can just pull those down from YouTube so that I have them on the archive. To nobody's surprise, freezing it did not fix the problem. The problem persisted after putting the drive into the freezer. So as you can probably tell by my numerous outfit changes, this has been like a 6-day process, but I finally have everything that can be saved. It's not everything, but it is, I would say, 85–90% of everything, which, given the circumstances, is fine. I'm okay with that. I've reorganized everything on the drive, and now we're about to use Carbon Copy Cloner to duplicate the one to the other, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, Carbon Copy Cloner is not an essential thing. It costs $50, but what's really nice about it is that it forces two drives to be identical, and anytime you plug in both drives, it'll update the one that you tell it to make sure that it is always identical, which is perfect for a clone. I'm also going to set it to carbon copy onto an SSD all my live projects by selecting a folder on my desktop and copying that to the SSD that's plugged in. You might not know this, but you can make the icon match your drive by just looking up the icon for whatever your drive is and then dragging it up here in the get info page, and then the icon will look like the drive. Yeah, that's our back. Yeah. Okay, real quick, pros and cons of my two drive setup. Pros, pretty safe. The things are in two locations, so it's unlikely, not possible, but unlikely that something will happen to both of them. Another pro, it didn't cost me that much money. It cost me about $400, which is less money than it would cost to pay somebody to try to recover the stuff I lost on the hard drive. Cons, it's annoying to update them because they're in two locations, so I gotta take one to the other and update it. Another con is that I'm gonna have to update the drives in probably 5 years because the drives will fail, they just get old, so it needs to be constantly updated, which is probably not a bad thing, but it is something to be mindful of when you do this. I am limited to 10 terabytes. If I have to increase storage, I have to update the drives. They're not the fastest drives, so if you plan on working from them, maybe you want to get a solid state drive instead of a spinning disk drive. But for me, since I'm just using it strictly for archiving and backing things up, this is fine. I'm not planning on working off the drives, and I don't plan on accessing them that often. There's one more thing I have to say about digital archiving, and it's a little bit philosophical, so forgive me. But I watched a video 4 or 5 years ago, and I can't find it now, so maybe I hallucinated it. But it was about pruning your photo albums. Like, go through your pictures on your phone or on your computer, wherever you keep them, and delete pictures. For example, if you have 7 pictures of a sunset, just keep one, delete all the other ones. Or if you have 20 pictures from one party or one event, just pick like your top 3 favorite photos and delete the rest. That forces you to be intentional about which pictures you keep, and it allows you to sort of get rid of the mess, because each picture has been curated, which ones are most meaningful. And I think that's really important, especially when you start talking about project archiving where the actual storage starts to cost money. I think it's important to avoid becoming a digital hoarder. You've got to be selective. You don't want to keep everything because then it becomes impossible to find anything, or everything loses its value because there's just so much stuff. So I think it's important to go through your media and prune so that everything holds more significance. There you have it. That's what I think about project backups. If you have any additional tips, thoughts, comments, please leave them below. And definitely don't tell me ways in which I can save the corrupted files, because I've already